Good morning, everyone. I'm Teacher Roxy. I'm an occupational therapist who is trained in the SOS approach. So, the SOS approach is basically children who are picky eaters or who have difficulty with feeding. The title of my talk today will be The Picky Eater Playbook, Helping Picky Eaters Thrive. So, if you know of children who have limited food range or they're having a hard time during meal times, this talk is for you. Okay, so what are the objectives of today's discussion? So, number one is for us to identify reasons why children don't eat or why they don't want to eat. Number two is to outline the necessary developmental skills for eating and feeding because eating is not just putting in food in your mouth and then swallowing it. There's a lot of other skills that are involved. So, we have to discuss those also. And then the next is to implement at least 3 strategies to improve your child's eating and mealtime preparation. Okay, first off, what is the difference between a picky eater and a problem feeder? Okay, so a picky eaters don't need therapy yet. They are part of a child's development. Picky eating is normal. Problem feeders, yun yung mas mahirap na. Those are the people who will have to seek occupational therapy or feeding therapy. How to differentiate picky eaters and problem feeders? Picky eaters, if you list down all the foods that your child eats, yung food that they eat can be more than 20. But problem feeders, less than 20 lang. So high chance there's just cookies, milk, chips, ice cream, that's it. Or there are others naman na they eat chicken but has to be fried chicken. But if it's roasted or boiled or whatever, they don't like it anymore. But there's a wider range. They have more than 20. Okay, next is recoverability. For picky eaters, if they lose that food, for example, I like egg, and then at one point, suddenly nagsawa na ako sa egg. Eventually, after a few months or a few weeks, I will start to like egg again. For problem feeders, once the food was lost, it's not reacquired. So if I didn't like egg, I loved egg, I stopped liking egg, never na babalik yung egg. Okay, next is tolerance. For tolerance, picky eaters are able to tolerate new food on their plate. Problem feeders will cry with new foods. So for example, the parent puts kangkong in the dining table. If I'm a picky eater, so long as it's not on my plate or so long as I don't have to eat it, I'll be fine with it. You know, it's your food, it's fine. A problem feeder, even if they just see it on the table, they cry or they get stressed or they throw a tantrum already. Okay, ease of introduction. With picky eaters, they can introduce or they can eat a new food within 15 to 20 steps. Problem feeders would take them longer. It would take 25 or more steps to integrate that food into their menu. In terms of nutrition, picky eaters, they have at least one food per nutrition group. Nutrition groups that starch, protein, fruits, and veggies. So for picky eaters, they have at least one food per group. Problem feeders, they can refuse entire categories of textures or nutrition groups. So high chance they're gonna only have starch in their diet. So it's all cookies, all rice. Or some people naman, it's based on texture. They only like crunchy foods. If it's mushy, if it's soft, they will not have it. So those are the differences between picky eaters and problem feeders. And the last one is the social inclusions. Picky eaters, they are able to eat with family. Even if they have a different food, kaya nila to eat together. Problem feeders, because nga they have difficulty with tolerance, they are likely to eat alone. Usually the family will eat first and then they'll eat after and then they have their own foods. Yon. Okay, so those are the difference between picky eaters and problem feeders. If you think that your kid or your child might be a problem feeder, it's best to seek professional help also so they can help you expand their variety. So look for SOS trained specialists or occupational therapists. Okay, so what are the 5 myths about eating that we're going to discuss? Number 1, it is normal for toddlers to go through a picky phase. What do you think? Okay, it's a fact. Cognitive development results in regression in other areas of functioning. So this means when a child's brain is developing, it's so focused on developing the cognition na everything else medyo napag-iiwanan ng body mo. So pag nagfo-focus yung brain on cognitive development, your sensory functioning, hindi niya na nafo-focus on. Kaya tayo nagiging picky eaters. So there are 4 major shifts in cognition. So if you notice actually with children, usually ang mga picky eaters, their ages 12 to 14, 18 to 36, 5 to 7, and 9 to 12. Kasi yun yung times na nagde-develop mostly yung cognition mo. You're not able to tolerate crunchy or soft or different senses. Those get left behind because your brain is focusing on cognition. So if you're a picky eater in those life stages, medyo valid pa siya. Parang ganon. Okay. In 12 to 14 months, that's when their flavor perception shifts. So they start to like sweet food more. They don't like sour foods. Their flavor perceptions shift. In 18 to 36 months, they start to have their own opinions na, I don't like this. I don't want to eat that. I only want this. Mga ganyan. And then 5 to 7 years, logical thinking develops. So they're like, ew, veggies? I don't like that. That's gonna taste bad or whatever. Or candy, that's only junk food. That's so unhealthy, blah, 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 blah. So they try to reason out or be more logical. And then same with 9 to 11. So in these major shifts in cognition, higher chance that your child might be a picky eater. Okay, next myth or fact. It can take more than 15 to 20 exposures before a child accepts new food. That is a fact. Repeated pressure-free exposure works slowly but surely. So this is what I was saying kanina, that it takes 20 to 25 steps for a child to eat a new food. Because eating is a 32-step process. It's not just get it with the spoon and then put it in your mouth. There's tolerating, interacting, smelling, touching, tasting, and then eating. And in each, marami pa siyang smaller steps. So we'll go through it briefly. So with tolerating is just seeing it with your eyes. You're able to tolerate it within your field of vision. So with other children, we take it a step further na it's across the table. It's nowhere near you, but you can see it. So you're trying to tolerate it from that far. For example, let's do broccoli. So broccoli across the table, and then you can bring it closer and closer until it's on your table already or on your plate. So for you to be able to tolerate it from that far to it being nearer to you, those are a lot of steps. Next is interacting. You being able to touch the food is also part of the steps. So for example, us when we're eating fries, you have to be able to touch it, feel that it's a bit oily, and then feel all the powder, and then you put it inside your mouth. So that part when you're touching things is part of your steps to eating. So there are other kids na, for example, watermelon. So when you hold it, it's a bit wet. They don't like that. So ayaw na nilang hawakan. So from there pa lang, may mismatch ka na. You won't be able to reach the eating part. So we try to meet them where they're at, and then that's where we target. Next is smelling. So we usually start with foods that don't have a strong scent, and then progress to those na mas malakas yung amoy, like adobo, cheese, and all those. So don't start with those because mas mahirap siya if they're more sensitive to smell. Or for example, sige, let's do broccoli again. You're not putting it in your mouth yet, but you're already okay with smelling. So that's a step further na. And then next is touch. You're able to touch it to your cheek, touch it to your nose, touch it to your chin. You're getting closer to the mouth, but you're not putting it inside yet. And then the next is the tasting. You're able to put it in your tongue. You're not chewing it yet, you're not swallowing it yet, but now you're able to taste the juices of what you're trying to eat. And then last is the chewing and then the swallowing. So in all of these steps, there are different kids who would have different problems. So for example, I have a kid na he doesn't like carrots. But we're okay with touching it. We're okay with putting it on our face. So that's where I'll start first. I'll do carrots, and then we'll just play with it in our face, but we're not gonna put it in the mouth. And then we're gonna start kissing it, because there's no taste receptors in your lips. It's all in the inside part, it's all in the tongue. So when you kiss it, you're already telling the kid na, okay, you're getting near to the mouth, pero hindi mo pa sinusubo. and then eventually you get to tasting it, and then try to chew it, and then try to swallow it. Yun. Those are the steps to eating. Okay. Third, if a child is hungry enough, they will eventually eat what is on the plate. That's a myth. Some children would rather skip a meal than eat a food that feels scary or overwhelming. So hindi totoo yung, hindi, gutumin mo lang yan, kakain din yan eventually. I mean, for some, it might work, but for someone with real sensory or feeding needs, it's not gonna work. They'd rather not eat. So, which would be harder for us also, kasi ayaw naman natin na they don't get the proper nutrition, right? Okay. Eating is a learned behavior. So a children needs the necessary skills to eat properly. So even if gutumin mo yung bata, if yung skills needed to eat is not there, he's not gonna eat. Okay, so for example, what are the motor skills that you need? Tongue tip lateralization for textured foods and to position food in the molars. Okay, when you're eating and you put it inside your mouth, eventually you use your tongue to move it to your molars. So ililipat mo siya doon, you bite it there, and then you transfer it to the other side, you bite it there, and then you transfer it to the middle so you can swallow it. So there are kids who have a hard time with that tongue movement. So if you're gonna have a kid eat nuts, for example, you want him to eat nuts, he doesn't want to eat it because nahihirapan siya eh. If you, from here, you bring it to the back, he can't do that. So how can he chew it at the back molars? Hindi niya magagawa. So mag-end up, ayoko na lang kumain yan. Kasi hindi ko nga siya kayang nguyain. So even if gutumin mo siya, hindi niya pa rin kakainin yun. Okay, another is rotary chewing. Rotary chewing. This is for tougher foods like meat and vegetables. If you notice when you're chewing, it's not like that. It's not up and down. You move it, you go around, like your jaw goes around. So there are kids, same, who have a harder time with this. Chicken, beef, pork. You're wondering, ayaw niya talaga kumain ng pork eh. Kahit na anong pilit ko, ganyan. Maybe because he has a motor skill. He has a hard time chewing it or making the pork go from this side to that side and then grinding it with his teeth. So same premise. If he doesn't have that skill, even if we keep giving him pork, he's not gonna eat it. So if it's a motor skill, you have to address that skill so that he will be able to eat all these kinds of foods. Okay, next. Myth or fact? Kids need to eat vegetables at every meal to be healthy. It's a myth. Okay, it's not just veggies. A healthy plate has to have a balance of starch, protein, fruits, and veggies. And all foods are healthy. Food is just food. What's important is for us to offer variety. Okay, so there's this thing it's called food jags. Food jags happen when eating the same food prepared the same way repeatedly. So kids will get bored of these foods and may permanently avoid them. So for example, I have a student who likes eggs, scrambled eggs specifically. So since hirap silang pakainin siya ng different kinds of foods, and they know that he likes scrambled eggs breakfast, lunch, dinner, scrambled eggs the next day, breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then eventually nagsawa siya sa scrambled eggs, and now they don't have anything else to feed him kasi he doesn't want to eat anything else. So that's what a food jag is. So for you to avoid food jags, you have to parang schedule or plan your menu with 1 day apart. Or if very limited yung food range ng kid, for example, scrambled eggs lang nga talaga ang kinakain niya, try to present it in different ways. Today, they're yellow and they're in triangle shapes. Tomorrow, they're a bit crunchier and they're in tinier bites. So you just try to put variety where it's possible para ma-avoid yung food jags. Okay, and all foods are healthy. It doesn't mean na if you want them to eat veggies, it has to be boiled broccoli or boiled carrots. You know, you try to make it fun. These are also kids, you know, they like flavors, they like colors, they like crunch, iba-iba. So for example, on your next grocery run, you try to explore ano pa ba yung mga ways of making food fun. So for example, veggie sticks. It's colorful, it's vegetables, it's crunchy, it's like a straw. So parang mas fun siya kainin for them. And then we have apple crisps. It's still apple, but it's crunchy and it's thin. So parang mas masarap siyang kainin. Feeling mo kumakain ka ng chichirya. And then we have fruit pops. So you can blender your watermelon, make it into an ice candy, and then that's what he will eat. So then it becomes more fun and exciting for the kid because it's now cold and yummy. It tastes like ice cream. And then if you want them to have starch, noodles can be like ribbons. I think there are even like alphabet pasta noodles. You can make them colorful also. And then protein can be your chicken nuggets. So they're small and in bite-sized, but it's easier for them to eat. Taho is also one. It's soft. It can be cold. It has pearls. Sago. There's sago. Yon. So parang it becomes more fun and sweet. But still, you're targeting the protein part. Yon. Okay, next. Myth or fact? Pressuring kids to take just one bite usually backfires. This is a fact. This may lead to increased resistance and negative associations. I've met several parents who would be like, try mo lang, yung pipilitin mo na, try mo lang, isang subo lang. And then the kid will start crying and be so stressed. And then eventually, he will take a bite just because he doesn't want the mom to get mad. So when you do that, it creates stress and trauma for the kid, which is not what we want because mealtime should be a happy and chill time for everyone. So when you do that, mas na-associate nila yung mealtime with stress. Na parang, shucks, kakain na naman ako, pipilitin na naman ako nanay ko, iiyak na naman ako and all that. Then they're not looking forward to the meals, which is what they should be because, meals are supposed to be happy. Yon. Okay, so what are the challenges that we encounter in meal times? One is the physical issues, the oral motor skills, could be lack of tone, hirap sila to sit up straight, they're always slouching, all those different physical issues, kulang sila ng ngipin, hirap sila with chewing on the side, etc. There are many other physical issues that can affect mealtime. Another is meal structure. A lack of routine or environment can lead to issues. For example, the usual routine is you eat breakfast, lunch, dinner at the said time, 10 a.m., 12 noon, 6 p.m. But there are others na because they're not eating enough, they'll just snack throughout the day. Na parang, sige, pakainin mo na lang ng milk this morning, tapos maya-maya pakainin mo ng cookies, and then maya-maya pakainin mo ng tinapay or something. So nawawala yung structure ng kid. Then by lunchtime, because he just ate a snack like an hour before, wala na siyang gana to eat lunch kasi hindi na siya gutom. So then at lunchtime, when you're trying to get him to try foods, he's not interested to try because he's not hungry anyway. So this is what we call grazing, when you snack throughout the day to get the nutrition in. So it takes off the hunger from them, and then wala na silang motivation to try the new foods. Another challenge is the food jagging, which is what I discussed a while ago. When you eat the same food repeatedly, it limits your diet. And then the last is the role models. Adults have to be a good example during meal times. If you want your kid to do it, you have to do it also. You can't expect your kid to be eating veggies if you yourself are not eating veggies. Or you can't expect your child to not be on the tablet while eating if you are on your phone while eating. So you have to set an example of what you want your child to do. Next are the strategies that you can try at home. Okay, social modeling, family style eating. Family style means lahat ng ulam is in the center of the table. You have your own plate. You get from the middle, you put it on your own plate, and then you eat together. So this is how you model good eating behaviors. And then you try to talk about the food na, ooh, this looks yummy. This has a lot of color, ganyan. And then you try to discuss na parang, oh, ang daming sauce. Maybe I should put more on my rice, etc. So you try to just discuss what you're eating and then see if your child will try to imitate what you're doing. Another thing we like to do is to imitate the child's eating. So for example, the child, you're having macaroni and cheese. The child was eating it with his fingers. Even if you don't do that, you can try to imitate how he's doing it. Para matuwa siya na parang, oh, daddy's eating like me. Then it becomes like a playful social interaction with your kid. And then he might be able to try more. So that's another thing that we do. And then another is to over-exaggerate motor movements. When you're eating, for example, fried chicken, and it's crunchy, you could be like, crunch, crunch, crunch. Wow, that's so yummy, etc. So parang natutuwa sila na sobrang OA ng reactions mo. And then they will try to imitate and try the chicken also and make crunches with it. Another is to make fun food. This is OA, that's not practical, but I just try to find a picture that makes food more fun. You try to add more color, try to add different shapes, different sizes to your food because it makes it more fun for the kid. Okay, so if your food is just, for example, it's chicken breast, it's white and it's plain, you can try to make them into balls, or you could try to wrap it in some carrot bits to add more color, or different things. Try to make it more color. Try to make it fun. And then the other thing we do is stay at the table. The food can leave the table, but you stay at the table. So sometimes kasi kids are smart. So if they don't like the food and they throw it, for example, to the floor, and you tell them, you cannot throw, you have to pick it up. So now they're out of the table, they're away from the mealtime, and then they pick up the food. And then they realize, every time I throw things, I can leave the table. So now, lagi na ako magtatapon kasi sasabihan ako ng mom ko na, oh, I have to get that. So then I'm away from the table. In other situations, we don't tolerate throwing of toys, throwing of anything. But during meal times, we do. I mean, so what I teach my kids is you can push the food out of off the table or farther from you. So for example, I gave a plate of scrambled eggs. You don't like scrambled eggs, you push it away. But you stay at the table. And then you can try to play with it from far away from you, okay? And then avoid punishing your children during meals. Technically, if a child is throwing things, we get mad. Do not do that, masama yan, hindi yan pwede, etc. Technically, that is correct if it's not mealtime. In mealtime, we try to keep it light and happy because from it being like a happy mood, it becomes a negative mood. Parang, shucks, napagalitan ako. Then wala na akong gana kumain. So you try to make it fun and chill. Na parang, okay, it's okay, you threw it. I'll just pick it up, put it back on your plate. Like nothing happened. Just during meal times, okay? So it becomes learning mode. Now they're willing to learn more. Na parang, okay, it's okay pala if I don't want to try it, I can just push it away. Then now I'm more willing to explore it. Yun. And then next is clear cues. So you eat at the same place at the same time. You use the same plates, the same utensils, the same everything. As much as possible, try to keep your utensils and plates plain so that the food is the highlight. I know it's common na you make it cars design, there are different, nagiging board game na yung whole plate mo, etc. But with those things kasi, with those kinds of designs, it becomes the plate is the fun thing. Hindi siya nagiging focus on the food. Or there are parents na there's a tablet and then the food. So now their eyes are fully on the tablet and then whatever you shove in their mouth, they don't care. But what we want is for them to be engaged in what they are eating. Next is proper seat. Make sure they are seated 90, 90, 90. 90 on the hips, 90 on the knees, 90 on the feet, flat on the floor. If your kid is eating and he's slouching like that, or he's leaning on the table, he will not be able to eat properly. So make sure that your child is seated properly so that he can eat properly, swallow foods properly. And last is the consistent schedule. If you're eating at 10 a.m., you're always eating at 10 a.m., always eating at 12 noon, always eating at 6 p.m. You try to have a consistent routine so that your child also knows na parang, okay, medyo nagugutom na ako. Kaya pala kasi magto-12 o'clock na. Wala kang snacks in between. What we do is usually the kitchen is closed when it's not during meal times. So if there's a snack time, you can have a snack time for every 3 p.m. it's snack time. Okay, then you can have a snack. But throughout the day, if hindi ka kumain, wala na, you're done. Next is the mealtime routine. So how will you set it up every meal? So before the meal, for example, your child is still playing, you give a verbal warning na, okay, we're eating in 5 minutes. So then he knows na, okay, in 5 minutes, I need to pack away my toys and then it's time for me to wash my hands. That's your transition activity. Usually you wash your hands, make bubbles, wipe it off, and then sit at the table. During the meal, the first 10 minutes, you eat together. Huwag mo muna siyang pansinin or like don't try to force him to try anything. Just eat. scoop food into your plate, scoop food in his plate, just try to eat, comment on what you're eating. Oh, this looks so yummy, I want to try it. Wow, this is so crunchy. Oh, do you want to try this one? Ganyan. So you just try to comment and play with the food. And then if wala pa rin, that's when you introduce the crutch. So a crutch is something that will help your child eat. So that's when you put out the toys, when you put out the iPad, or those things. If wala na talagang kinain, like 20 minutes na kayong nagtatry, pero wala pa rin nangyayari, that's when you introduce the crutch. Just so that they don't rely on it the whole time. And then last is after the meal, the cleanup routine, use of a scrap bowl, and then bring to the sink. So I will explain the scrap bowl more in the next. But cleanup routine is, okay, whatever you put on the plate, even if you didn't finish it, you bring the whole thing to the sink. You have a scrap bowl. This is where yung mga things na ayaw mong kainin, but you just tried, you can spit it in a scrap bowl and then you throw it out also. So, for example, broccoli, you don't want to eat it. You don't want to do anything with it. But I want to play with it. So I'm okay with that. So I'm going to play with the broccoli. And then after I play with it, I can put it in the scrap bowl. Okay, next. We're having scrambled eggs. I'm okay with kissing and putting it in the mouth, but I don't want to swallow it. So I'm going to kiss it and then I'm going to spit it out in the scrap bowl. Okay, fine. And then after everything that's in the scrap bowl, you're just going to throw it out after. So this reduces the pressure with kids na parang every time may ipapatry sa akin, kailangan ko siyang nguyain and swallow. You remove that pressure because there's always that scrap bowl where you can throw it out if you don't want to try it or if you don't want to go steps further into it. Okay, next is, so this is where SOS really comes in. So our main premise is systematic desensitization. We gradually introduce foods in a structured way, pairing exposure with enjoyable activities to overcome sensory difficulties. So remember kanina I discussed the 6 general steps in eating. So for example, you're trying to target touch. Ayaw niyang mag-touch ng carrots. So what you can do is, you can wrap it in tissue first, and then you hold the tissue that has the carrot. And then you can draw on a plate, or you can pretend you're painting something. So you're not directly touching the carrot, but you're almost there. You're holding something that is touching the carrot. So you try to meet where the kid is at. If hindi niya pa rin kaya yon, you could even do like, you're just stabbing it with a fork. You're holding a fork that is holding the carrot. You're not touching it directly. And then eventually you could be touching it with one finger lang, you're touching the carrot. Eventually, you're holding the whole carrot in your whole palm. And then you're having a sword fight with the carrot. But you're still not putting it in your mouth. So you're still playing with it. And then eventually, you're having a sword fight. You stabbed your kid on the forehead, and then you cut na-cut mo siya sa cheek with the carrot, ganyan. So there are different ways to play with it, which is fun for them. And walang pressure. Kasi to them, I'm just playing with the food. Okay, and then the other thing, for example, kaya niya nang hawakan, kaya niya nang i-kiss. You want him to try to take a bite. So again, you have the scrap bowl. For example, the carrot. How about let's play a game? Whoever can throw the carrot into the bowl gets a point. So you try to take a bite of the carrot and then you blow it out. And then if it goes inside the bowl, you get a point. So for example, it's that. So to them, they're playing a game where it's fun, it's playing basketball. But to you, look, na-try niya nang i-bite, na-try niya nang i-touch sa tongue, and na-spit out niya. So to them, it's play, but for us, we're targeting different things already. So that's tolerating, touching, putting on, and then biting. Next is food play. So you use mealtime as a fun and engaging opportunity to explore food. Your food play or your play with food will depend on what age your kid is. Kasi if hindi naiintindihan ng kid yung play scheme mo, then it wouldn't make sense. For sensory motor usually works for children 2 and below. So mga more on babies pa. They like playing with textures. They like mushing things. They like just messy play. You know, they like to play with it. Painting, ganyan. So that's how you play with them. You can put them in a stick and then you can make sounds with it. You can crash it. You can smash it, ganyan. Pre-logical, this is where pretend play or imagination comes in. Usually 2 to 5, 6-year-olds. Dito mahilig sila sa ganyan. They like to pretend we're building a snowman with rice, or we're trying to build the Three Little Pigs house using carrot sticks, ganyan. So you try to imagine different ways to play. You can make it into a car. I have this kid before, we played with banana. He hates banana. He hates touching banana because it's very mushy and slimy, diba? But he likes cars. So what we did was we made a race. So this is the race track. And then we have a banana. And then whoever gets their banana first to the elbow gets the point. Parang ganon. So then we're like, vroom, vroom, ganyan. So then suddenly he was holding the banana. He was touching the banana onto his elbow and all that. So, you try to figure out what your kid likes to play with or what will engage him. And then you try to make plays with it. And then the last is the logical. Dito na yung mga, oh, what happens if I crack a nut open? Why is there a seed inside? Why is it that cheese, when it's at this temperature, it's melty, but if it's at this temperature, it's very cold and hard? Ganyan. So they like to analyze things. They like to make experiments. So that's where you can meet them at. Dito rin papasok yung mga mahilig mag-games. I have a kid, I don't know if you know the poison game. It's like you have different Skittles on the plate and then you pick one poison. And then whoever eats the poison first loses. So we use the same game but with different things. There was one time I used it with peas. So I have peas scattered on the plate, and then you have to put it in your mouth, but you can spit it out if you want. You can chew it or you can spit it. So what he likes to do is he'll put it in his mouth and I'll say safe, or if it's poison, and he spits it. And then in the same way I do also. So that's the other thing with food play. You have to play with the kid. So if your kid is chewing and spitting, ikaw rin, that's what you have to do. Because again, we have to be role models. So sometimes it could feel a bit yucky, but to them, kasi it's play. So we try to meet them where they're at. Next is, how will you set up during meals? Okay, so you have your starch, protein, fruit, and veggie on your plate. And then you have a learning plate and a scrap bowl. So a learning plate is something that the kid doesn't want to eat yet, but is something that you want him to learn. So for example, is the avocado, for example. He doesn't like avocado. It's mushy, it's green, it's yucky. You put it on the learning plate. There's no pressure for you to eat whatever is on the learning plate. You can touch it, you can smell it, you can mash it, but you don't have to eat it. There's also the scrap bowl. So after for example, you wanted to try a lick or you wanted to take a bite, but you didn't like it. You didn't like the taste, you didn't like the texture. You can spit it out in your scrap bowl. There's no pressure for you to swallow it. There's no pressure for you to finish what is on the learning plate. It's just for you to learn. Yon. So parang it's a way to reduce pressure and to make it fun also for them to eat. Next is when you're setting up your plate. This is more for when you're trying the SOS approach. Not during mealtime. Parang you're just trying to make them try a new thing. So you try to parang transition it to something similar. So for example, your starch is feta. It's circular. You go to your protein. Pepperonis are also circles. And then pepperonis are red. So you're gonna try a watermelon, which is also red. So ganun mo siya i-plan for him to try. So you start with, in this setup, in this example, what he eats is the starch. He only eats crackers, so that's what you put. The protein, the pepperoni, he doesn't have to eat that, but you can pretend it's a wheel, you're driving somewhere, you can honk it or something, ganon, you can play with it. And then after you're done playing with that, you bring out the next food. Oh, it's also color red. So hindi siya as hard of a transition for a child to explore the next thing. And then you play with the watermelon. You can try to squeeze it, get how much juice you can get out of it, try to pick out all the seeds from it, and then you're done with it. Hindi mo siya ipe-pressure to taste it or to swallow it. You're just playing. Okay, another example. You have the spiral noodles. But you can pick out even sa spiral noodles, you can pick out only the orange ones. And then you can have him try the melon. But to make melon fun, you can make it into strings. And then you can make it into worms, or you can make it into a bracelet, or you could make it into something else. You could tie ribbons with it, different things. And then what else is string cheese? So then you could start peeling your cheese. I just used string cheese actually the other day, and then we were making drawings with it. So we make like a circle for the head, and then we put the legs and the arms, and then you have to guess what I'm drawing with the string cheese. Another is, okay, French fries, transition into veggie sticks, transition the colorful veggie sticks into yogurt drops. So now they're all colorful, they're more or less the same shapes. So the first two are same shapes, the next two are same colors. Yon. So you try to think about what your child eats, and then isipin mo ano yung similar in color or in shape or in size with that thing. Okay, and then the last one is menu planning. Okay, so you know all these tricks about how to play with food or how to get your child engaged with food, but how will you apply it to your meals? Yung mga kanina, that is what you do to get him to try something. So it's done not during meal times. It's done as play. Menu planning, this is what you do in the 3 times a day. So your focus now is the volume of the food consumed. Kanina, your focus is exposure to unaccepted food. Now, your focus is on the volume of the food. So it always has to have, ideally, will always have to have protein, a starch, a fruit or a veggie, and then the drink. Okay, so here I have an example of, this is my student. Ito lang yung kinakain niya. As in, throughout the day, for the past 3 years, I think, this is all he eats. Pandesal, wafer, rice, fries, waffles. He has a bit of protein. He does string cheese. He likes the strawberry Dutch milk, specifically strawberry lang. He likes chocolate chips and the Nutella spread. He doesn't have fruits or veggies on his list. There's no other meat on his protein list. This is it. Okay, so from here, how can you get him to try other things? So, ito yung sample menu. Okay, so remember food jogging? We try not to get the same food repeatedly. But again, if ganito lang yung food on your list, parang it's hard to plan 5 meals that don't repeat for consecutive days, right? Okay, so for example, for day 1, breakfast niya, you'll have a starch is your pandesal, the protein is your Dutch mill. And then you try to think, what's a fruit or a veggie I can add here that's fun or that's close to pandesal or Dutch mill. So, okay, let's try apple crisps. They're both a bit pale in texture. And then that's what you put on their plate. And then for snack, they'll have the wafer, the cheese, and then the banana chips. So you try to keep at least one new food and try to keep at least one preferred food. Something in every meal has to be familiar. And then the others, you can add something new. So here, what I did was, kasi kakastart mo pa lang with this new strategy, put more preferred foods more than the non-preferred foods. So, mas maraming favorites niya, tas magsisingit ka lang ng isa na hindi niya gusto. As you progress to like day 8, day 9, you could do 2 na hindi niya gusto, isa na gusto niya. Or, for example, for breakfast, 2 na gusto niya, isa na hindi niya gusto. But during dinner, there's more that he doesn't like, more than those that he likes. So you can try to switch it up already. And then, for example, for day 2, as much as possible, these foods that you listed on day 1 will not be on day 2. If they are on day 2, again, if, for example, the range is very limited talaga, you try to space it out. So if you had it for breakfast in day 1, don't have it for breakfast on day 2. Try to have it later in the day. Or if you're gonna have French fries on day 1, try to have it look differently in day 2. It could be cut shorter, or it could be longer. It could be a hash brown, or just try to make it different in some way, in some characteristic, para hindi magsasawa yung kid. Yon. So those are the 2 things that you have to consider, the therapy meals and the family meals. So these menu planning is what you do when you're eating 3 times a day. But when you're trying to explore new foods, that's when you do your food play. One is, why are they running away? Like, is it because they're not hungry, or they're still playing, or they don't like the food that they're about to eat? Or is it mealtime is too long. I don't want to sit down for so long. So you try to figure out why the kid is running around. For example, it's attention span. Gusto ko pang maglaro. Ayokong umupo for an hour for me to eat. So you can try to have your meal times shorter and then have him sit for that long first. And then you can play after. So para hindi niya na-feel na, oh, I have to sit here for this long and then I'm not gonna be having fun, ganyan. So that's why the other thing is for you to keep meal times fun and for you to eat all together. Para it's a social thing also. And then hopefully that could get them to sit longer also. Yeah. Meal time should not take longer than 40 minutes. So, whether they eat or not, or parang kahit konti lang kinain nila, kung ano na yon, the kitchen closes also. So, when everyone's done eating, bring your food to the sink and then you're done. If you make it longer kasi, mas magiging stressful lang siya. Or like parang nagpapatigasan lang kayo doon. Then it becomes like it becomes a negative situation. So, kanina, diba, during the mealtime structure, I was saying na you talk about the food for the 10 minutes and then you introduce the crutch after 20 minutes. So that's when you try to make it, try to give the iPad, try to give the toys or whatever. Tapos pag wala pa rin, after 30 minutes, 40 minutes, wala pa rin nangyari. Okay, we're done. Bring your food to the kitchen and then we're done. And then the next meal comes, which is dinner time or snack time, ganyan. Yun. So, if your kid also is having a hard time pa with those kinds of food, you try to think also of your menu. So, ito lang yung mga gusto niyang kainin, pero ito yung present ko, kaya nagmamatigasan kami. So, you try to include preferred and non-preferred also so that they'll be more encouraged to eat. You have to meet where the kid is at. So, again, we don't, for example, yan talaga ang snack ng center, but the kid doesn't eat it. We cannot force a kid to eat, you eat what I give you. Parang mahirap siyang i-expect of kids. Kasi nga, ayaw nila. So, for example, in those cases, you already know more or less what the snacks will be. Then you try to, during your therapy meals or during your playtime of exploring foods, then you can incorporate those. For example, sa snack time, it's a sandwich and it's an egg sandwich. So during your play times to explore food, then you can work towards eating an egg sandwich. But for them to just sit down and know you have to eat what is given, it's hard. So medyo kailangan mo i-find yung balance with pagbibigyan mo siya ng konting snacks, tapos you could still have it on the plate. You could kiss it, you could lick it, and then that's it. No pressure for you to finish it, but you can try to interact with it muna. And then you still have your own snack, para may kinain ka pa rin. That's it for the Picky Eaters Playbook. This is generally the SOS approach. So you try to desensitize a child without pressure. So you try to meet them where they're at, and then you try to include play to make them more engaged in how you're going to interact with food. Remember not to put pressure, and you try to make it light and fun so that the child will be more excited or looking forward to meal times with you. Also, if you think they might be a problem feeder, it will still be best to seek professional help. Okay, these are all strategies that you can try at home. But if they don't work, it's best to seek help from professionals like occupational therapists or SOS trained specialists.